Hello, everyone. This is JT Keating, Vice President of Product Strategy here at Zimperium. I would like to welcome everybody to another webinar. This is a webinar we're very excited about. We're very excited about our partnership and our connection with the great folks at VMware, and specifically in and around Workspace ONE Intelligence. We're very, very bullish on the overall approach of Workspace ONE Intelligence, and we're very excited to be a part of it. So a couple perfunctory comments as we get into this. We're going to try and keep this to right around 30 minutes worth of content, and then Q&A at the end if there are questions. If there's not, then we don't like to make them up. We just give you time back. But that's the plan. We will have an archived version of this up on the site within a day or so. We can also make slides available to everybody. Please don't use the chat capability. Even if you have technical problems, please throw it in the Q&A section because it's easier for us to be able to see. We've had some issues with chat before. So we are going to dive into this. You guys can see the topic there. This whole conversation of heading towards unified endpoint security is something, like I said, near and dear to our hearts. I'm joined with three presenters. First is Steve DeJarnett. You can see he's there, the Director of Product Management for Workspace ONE Intelligence. Steve, thanks very much for joining us. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Pleasure. Thanks, JT.
And we are also joined by John Patterson, our Chief Technology Officer from Zimperium. John, thanks also for your time.
No problem. Thank you, JT.
And then finally, one of the things that we're definitely getting into, and VMware and Zimperium, we've been spending a lot of time, saying, hey, when we do these sorts of webinars, how do we make them as engaging as possible? And so the format is going to be a few slides just to kind of frame things up so everybody has a chance to look at the forest. But then what we're really going to do is we're going to dive in, we're going to show a live demo of Zimperium's mobile threat information integrated into Workspace ONE Intelligence, and then how can you do, what sort of really cool things can you do in that capacity. And that demo is led by Kern Smith, Zimperium's VP of Sales Engineering for the Americas. So Kern, thank you for being here as well.
Thanks for having me, JT.
So with that, I would like to turn it over, and Steve, can you start the conversation for folks and kind of frame up what is Workspace ONE Intelligence, what's the vision for it, and then we can kind of roll from there.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, JT. So for many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the Workspace ONE digital workspace platform. We're trying to bring the best modern management capabilities, not just to our legacy in mobile, but also now to the full desktop experience platforms, and also enable companies to build out a zero trust access control mechanism to do kind of an interesting thing in security. Often security is viewed as something that gets in the way or reduces employee experience. And we feel like when done correctly, zero trust combined with modern management actually enables a better employee experience. So we want to help you do this unusual thing of bringing security and employee experience together to bring a better experience to your employees. So the Workspace ONE platform, just to refresh everybody, starts with our core unified endpoint management platform, extends to our app lifecycle management capabilities for deploying apps, both the most modern applications as well as even Win32 apps where required. Our zero trust conditional access capabilities that I mentioned, the ability to provision apps and enable your employees to access them in a zero trust just-in-time validation model. Obviously, we have a rich history in our virtual desktop, our Horizon product, and published apps, which gives you different ways to consume apps, and we can tie that back into zero trust access as well. Mobile flows is our capability that allows you to in a single flow, take action across a number of services. Think about approvals that you have when you see something in an email, being able to approve it rather than leaving into a browser to go do that and then have interrupted your flow. Mobile flows just makes it kind of a one-click action to approve or disapprove something and stay within your current context. And then we give you the ability through our SDKs to leverage some of the same technologies we use for security, privacy, and authentications, but to build those into your own apps as well. We do this across all devices, both mobile, desktop, iOS, Android, Windows, Mac, and Chrome. All form factors, whether that's traditional or more rugged devices, virtual form factors as well. And then we layer on top of that, as JT was mentioning, our Workspace ONE intelligence service. This is a SaaS delivered service that gives you broader insights into what's happening in your environment across all these devices, apps, and services, but also gives you the ability to orchestrate and automate response. And we're going to see with Zimperium how we can bring those two products together to help you identify issues and take action against your managed devices. And then finally, the ecosystem. Again, this is where our Trust Network partnership with Zimperium and others comes into play. And this builds up into the overall Workspace ONE platform, where we help you manage and provision devices. We help you secure them, give you great visibility into what's happening across those devices, apps, and services to help you deliver the best experience to your employees. Now, diving in specifically to the integrations with Zimperium and our Trust Network, we view security that in the past, we view security and IT as teams that had to operate as ships in the night. They would pass each other occasionally, but they really didn't always collaborate. And as we've thought about it, we really feel like the best way to secure your environment is to think of this as an effort that you're all in together. It's a team sport. Often when people think about securing an environment, they think about the InfoSec, the security engineering, the security operations teams, and they have a key role to play. Obviously, you want to build out a view of what baselines look in your environment. You want to validate the security posture of your devices, your users, and your applications. You want to identify the risks. So that's one key requirement that security teams are chartered with. Obviously, a core tenet, core requirement is the broad prevention activities, preventing malicious code from getting onto devices, protecting users from being phished, social engineered, et cetera. And then, if we're honest with ourselves, we know that there are always going to be some things that are going to make it through in spite of our best efforts. And so the ability to detect those issues, investigate them, and respond to them quickly is obviously critical to keeping your environment as secure as possible. But when you think about the end user services teams in most companies, they actually have some similar charters and challenges. They're chartered to provision devices to employees, but to provision them in a way where they're set up with a known set of policies deployed on them, configured in a particular way that's appropriate for that environment. They're often the gatekeepers for access to different applications through identity platforms and through broader zero trust access control policies. And so being able to provide access to an application securely, whether that's a native app, a hybrid app from a device to a service, or a web delivered app. And then finally, as changes occur in the environment, as devices drift from desired state, as issues arise, end user services too has a response orchestration process that they need to engage in and follow. And as they go through this, obviously they want to automate as much of this as possible. But when you look at this, you see sort of the parallels that come between the teams and look at those as opportunities to integrate and work better together to provide a more secure environment. Now, it seems like almost forever ago, but earlier this year, back in February, in the pre-COVID days, VMware engaged with Forrester and had them do a survey of over 1,400 IT and security managers to find out, among other things, what were their top priorities over the next 12 months. And while COVID may have rebalanced some of these, the number one item on their list at the time, and I think still just as relevant today, was driving increased collaboration and alignment between security and IT teams. Again, just as we talked about on that previous slide, getting the teams who have so much in common, touch the same devices, work with the same users, getting them working and collaborating together. And obviously the other things like gaining better visibility to the endpoints on their network, simplifying the environment as well, continue to be key challenges and trends as we go through even the times we're facing with COVID-19. So that's a quick intro to the Workspace ONE family, the challenges we see and the opportunity ahead of us. And I thought I'd turn it over to John to talk to us a bit more about what Zimperium brings uniquely to the table.
Thank you, Steve. So, as Steve was highlighting, the Workspace ONE platform provides, significant amount of capabilities in orchestration, data collection, and the ability to really conjoin security teams with IT operation teams. So where do we fit in that life cycle? Well, at Zimperium, we're focused on protecting modern computing platforms. So mobile devices being a great example of that. And the foundation of any technology in such a space to be able to provide detection, forensics, remediation, response capabilities comes from a foundation of world-class detection capabilities. So how do we implement that on modern computing devices? We leverage an engine we call Z9, which is focused around providing on-device detection capabilities using machine learning and behavioral constructs around 4 key capability areas. The first of those is the ability for us to detect device attacks. What do I mean by device attacks? For example, a mobile device being compromised. Maybe they've installed an app, or they've clicked a link, or some sort of inbound request or messaging request, and that's triggering some sort of vulnerability, known or unknown, on that device. Being able to detect that in real time locally on the device. Network-based attacks, I think all of us would agree. Almost every device that we use today is connected to some sort of network. Being able to detect those network attacks are occurring on those devices, and then be able to apply appropriate remediation and response capabilities. And we'll talk a little bit about what that means in a moment. Phishing. Phishing is a growing concern for security practitioners, especially on modern device platforms. We have a very unique capability there to be able to leverage machine learning locally on those devices to detect zero-day phishing attacks, something that's a very prevalent concern for our customer base. And finally, malicious apps. Malicious apps is a constant concern, regardless if we are using desktop devices or mobile devices. Again, leveraging our machine learning approach, we're able to not only detect zero-day malware on the device, even without connectivity, but also identify the specific family class of malware as well. So many of these constructs are familiar to you if you leverage desktop security solutions today. So really being able to bring those capabilities, those key capabilities to a mobile device or a modern computing device, and be able to deliver them wherever possible on that device locally is something that's always a goal for us at Zimperium. Steve, maybe if you could click the next slide for me. So understanding a little bit about our engine design and capabilities. How are those capabilities surfaced in our technology and on our product solutions that we integrate very closely with VMware Workspace ONE and Workspace ONE Intelligence? So fundamentally, our design has always been enterprise class security solutions. What do I mean by enterprise class? I mean the ability for us to have very granular group-based policies for both data collection, forensic collection, something we'll talk to you more about forensics as we go through the demonstration, but being able to apply those on a granular basis. Many of you will have devices that fit under particular classes, maybe corporate-owned devices versus BYO, and you'll probably want to have different detection, response, and forensic collection for those. So being able to design those policies at a granular level, something that's very, very important, and be able to scale to those enterprise environments also. Unknown threats is a very key focus for us. I think we all approach unknown on our desktop devices, but it's a key area for mobile. Mobile is now a significant focus for research. For any of you that even were to take a look at the upcoming Black Hat seminar, you'll see the number of interesting mobile-related threat sessions that are coming up there. So being able to do that locally on device is something that's very, very important. Privacy, again, enterprise focus, being able to define the privacy. When an attack occurs, what is it that you wish to collect from that device at that moment in time, and being able to do that on a granular basis. We're very enterprise focused. We won't dictate to you how you wish to deploy our solution. That could be in a cloud, a private cloud, or even potentially on-premise. And we have some great joint customers with VMware in that area. So taking those design constraints, how do we then surface out in the key areas of the capability? So we assess modern computing devices from an initial risk perspective. So when you deploy our technology, we will risk and benchmark those devices. That can be anything from security misconfigurations on the device through to vulnerabilities that the device may be targeted by or vulnerable to operating system updates, malware, etc. on that device, really baselining that initial device. Then we would move to threat detection capabilities. So proactively monitoring that device for new threats. Those threats could be malware, they could be device compromises, they could be malicious Wi-Fi networks or phishing links. Now, having the best-in-class threat detection is important, but then it's how we remediate and we respond and report that data, which is critically important and really a key part of the story that we want to communicate to you with Workspace ONE Intelligence as an overall solution set. So from a remediation perspective, we can, as Zimperium solution, trigger actions locally on those devices. That could be, say, removing malware or disconnecting a device from a Wi-Fi network, triggering a corporate VPN, sinkholing traffic, many different local remediations that we can take instantaneously. But in a integrated solution set with Workspace ONE Intelligence, we can then also trigger other very powerful remediation workflows, and Kern's going to show you some of those in a moment. So we're very excited by the orchestration capabilities that leveraging our detection capabilities and forensics and being able to conjoin those with Workspace ONE Intelligence, you're going to see some powerful workflows there. And finally, reporting. As security and IT practitioners, it is critically important to be able to have supporting forensics and IOCs when we detect these threats. At Zimperium, it's a key focus for us, but it's not only a key focus for our product, but how we surface and provide that data to our integrations, such as we have with Workspace ONE Intelligence that Kern will be showing you in a moment. So we're very comprehensive endpoint strategy for modern computing devices, but some very unique capabilities that are provided with our overall integration. Steve, back to you.
Great, thanks, John. So again, just to sum up, Workspace ONE Intelligence is going to help bring together the leading security products for your endpoints. When we talked about Unified Endpoint Security. Obviously, with our acquisition of Carbon Black, VMware brings leading next generation antivirus and EDR capabilities for Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. Tying that together with Zimperium's MTD solution, securing iOS, Android, and Chrome OS, we give you full endpoint security and full unified visibility through the Workspace ONE Intelligence Console. We can tie together that data again with our UEM data from Workspace ONE, our identity and app access data from our Workspace ONE Access solution, in-product SDKs to give you deep insight into what's happening inside applications that you build for mobile. Adding other additional context to that to give you dashboards and reports to create the visibility to understand what's happening in your environment, if there are threats, where are they manifesting themselves, and then importantly, the ability to kick off orchestrated actions, as John was talking about earlier, responding not just to the immediate threat, but also perhaps to take a broader action as you assess the posture of a device that was at one point infected or was attempted to be infected. And so I think this slide tells a story, but a picture is worth 1,000 words. A demo is worth even more. So I want to turn it over to Kern right now. I'm going to stop sharing, and we're going to let Kern Smith take us through take us through a demo of the integration between Workspace ONE Intelligence and Zimperium.
Excellent. Thanks, Steve. So what I'm going to walk through real quick is just first the integration, but then some different workflows that we feel are a good starting point for the value of the integrated solution for both visibility, automation, reporting, etc. So from a integration standpoint, it's very straightforward. All you do, you add the integration, and right now I have my Z console integrated with my Workspace ONE Intelligence platform. At this point, I can start building out different things around both visibility from a dashboarding reporting perspective, but also automation. So those type of things can be very granular or really be configured in a way that's relevant for you and your environment. So in this example, I've built out some different dashboards. Phishing is a very big concern, especially with mobile and as everybody's kind of moved to remote work, and mobile being kind of the primary communication platform. So for a lot of organizations, being able to determine where phishing attacks are occurring and what's their success rate, because there's a difference between a device, us detecting and preventing a phishing attack, versus a user actually succumbing to a phishing attack. So visually being able to identify those items. But even beyond that, not just saying, hey, how many critical items or high risk items have occurred out here, but being able to put context around those events. So how many critical events actually occurred while the device was connected to a corporate network or a network of significance for you as a user of this? Or for example, maybe identifying what are trends for even medium level threats, or even going in and saying, look, I realize that device compromises, like any compromise, they're all bad, right? But you may want to leverage the forensics to understand what was the impact, or are there trends about the type of compromises or the impact of those compromises against the device, and leveraging Zimperium's on-device detection along with the granular forensics, importing that into Workspace ONE Intelligence, and leveraging the engine that Workspace ONE Intelligence provides to provide context around these attacks with all the forensics becomes extremely valuable for customers, because now it's not just a data dump per se. You now understand in a more finely tuned manner what the impact of these threats are specific to your environment and specific to assets that you may prioritize beyond just general, this is bad, let's take care of it. So, but beyond the visibility aspect of things, there's also the automation aspect, right? Because we don't just want to live in dashboards, we want this stuff to be taken care of without really any interaction. And this is where this is another area where there's a lot of power in the integrated solution with Zimperium and Workspace ONE. So again, being able to identify threats that are relevant but are specific to you as an organization, right? So it may be something where you want to build out a rules engine that is focusing specifically on and taking actions above and beyond a threat if the device is, say, connected to a sensitive network or something along those lines. So you can now build out certain automations around those rules policies. In this case, we're looking at the severity of the event, seeing if the threat category contains any of these type of threats, be it malware, network exploits, etc., and really kicking this off if the device was connected to any of these networks. In this case, we're using my test Wi-Fi as a simulated network. But we could do this off of any number of items, be it network ID, BSSID, domains, etc. And that's a lot of the power of the engine that Workspace ONE provides, along with the fact that Zimperium actually has the forensics that can be leveraged to trigger these things, along with all the detection events. And then from an automation perspective, we can build out some very granular automation. So in this case, we would start with maybe some notifications to a general Slack channel, maybe kicking off the removal of a payload or profile because the device is under Workspace UEM management. So leveraging the management tools at place to automate those items without having to go in and set up a compliance policy or any number of those things. Again, also leveraging some additional notifications either to a distribution list or to the user with context around the actual threat. And if we wanted to, we could start kicking off things like ServiceNow integrations to automate maybe the replacement of a device if the device was compromised, or any number of things. Also, there's kind of an unlimited amount of integrations that are possible, especially considering Workspace ONE has a open REST API platform. So really the possibilities are somewhat endless. So an example of this in action, right? In this case, kind of a malware threat where we're just going to, kind of send some notifications and emails. I'll show you this very quickly. In this case, I have a device that we're going to sideload a piece of malware on. In this case, we put some malware onto the device. We see Zimperium detects the suspicious app. This initiates the local detection on the device. And what's going to occur now is that we're actually going to see Hub, because of the action that we prescribe, send a notification or enact an action on the device. In this case, we're just notifying. But also from an admin perspective, I'm also going to get a notification based off of that email saying, hey, there's a critical threat that occurred with this piece of malware on the device. More information's here. So now I can drill into the details around the actual forensics of the threat, including understanding what the malware family was, hashes, things of that nature, to help further understand the impact of the threat. So that's just one example of the automation of the tool, but this can get extremely granular. Again, these automations are quite powerful and offers a significant amount of context around the actual threats themselves. So you can drill down into a number of different categories, be it devices being compromised, network-based events, phishing attacks, and then the actions or the context or the rules that you can build out around those automations really are very flexible and can be created based on any number of items and in conjunction with a large combination of items that are specific to your environment. So while remediation, if there's malware on the device, doesn't matter what network it's connected to, that's bad. But if the malware's on a executive user and there's other things where the device is connecting to, other forensically information things, you can now start creating those automations to enact above and beyond actions, beyond baseline automations that may have been set up from a Zimperium standpoint or Workspace ONE UEM standpoint using intelligence. And then tying that all back into the reporting, being able to, again, understand using dashboards and reporting significant trends, significant events, any type of commonalities across attack vectors so that you can further start leveraging that data to reduce risk and maybe put additional safeguards in from a prevention standpoint versus a reactionary standpoint. So I'll kind of stop right there and hand it back over to Steve and John.
Great, thanks, Karen. Terrific demo, really in a very quick run through, showed some of the power there where, again, understanding and being able to visualize threats that are happening critically important to understand what's happening in your environment. But as Kern showed, the ability where appropriate to take automated action and response to an issue, we think creates that power, creates that working together between the end user services and security teams to help better secure the environment and create an environment where things are taken care of automatically when appropriate, and otherwise they can be escalated to the security teams, to the IT teams, to whoever is best suited to take action as appropriate. So I think we were, yeah.
Yeah, thank you guys very much. This is JT again. Folks, we're nearing the end of the conversation, and I'm just going to leave this up as a visual for folks to kind of, now that you've gone through the demo that Kern just stepped us through, as Steve was saying about, a picture being worth 1,000 words and a demo being worth even more. Now you come back to the picture though, and you're like, hey, I start to understand how these things fit together. And to your point, Steve, I think one of the best parts about the direction of Workspace ONE Intelligence is being able to take information from any, best of breed of whether you want it on Carbon Black, on traditional, Zimperium on mobile, network security, and bring it in. And then to your point, actually make it where security and IT are now able to work together, largely because of automations that can occur. So I think that's fantastic. So folks, now's the time. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A section. And while we're doing that, Steve and John, for instance, any last thoughts or comments, maybe something that popped up in the middle of Kern's demo?
No, I think understanding what's happening on your mobile device fleet, getting a view and being able to get those notifications so you can respond. Obviously, alert fatigue is a challenge for everyone, but being able to understand not only did something happen, but that the system has set up and kicked off an automated response action for you. Again, take those things where you understand the behavior, you know what action you want to take, and start automating those. You can start selectively and build up, work your way out. But finding the things where you can let the systems and the tools take a prescribed set of actions, even if that's just getting the device to a secured state. So that someone can then, maybe from an incident response team or help desk, can reach out to the end user, protect your data, protect your environment, but also do so as automatically as possible. We think there's a lot of power in that and can help you and can help your teams be more efficient and more effective.
Yeah, I think that makes complete sense. And for me, one of the things, and you and I have not had a chance to talk about this, but I would also imagine not only in-house incident response teams, et cetera, but organizations like MSSPs that are just continuing to increase in terms of importance, that would be this would be a very logical fit for somebody like that, because you can't just continue to throw bodies at things, right? So automating things would really make a lot of sense. So we have one question that did come in, and either JP or Kern, whichever one of you would like to take it. And the question is Zimperium detecting malicious apps that have been approved by either Google Play or Apple App Store, or is this mainly for unsigned apps? So John or Kern, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, I can take it, JT. So Zimperium's proud to be part of Google's App Security Alliance, where we work together to scan apps that are provided in the store. At least from the Android side of the house, of course, there are many other stores that devices are able to install applications from, and of course, users can install apps directly themselves. In fact, We've seen scenarios such as with Fortnite where that's actually actively being encouraged. So we obviously are able to provide additional detection capabilities for any of those sources, both known and unknown. But more importantly, and reflecting back on our integration here with Workspace ONE Intelligence, that detection needs to be not only raised in visibility to the enterprise, but also be able to trigger orchestration. And through our detection capabilities, both the sample type and the family type, combined with the forensics and the orchestration capabilities that our conjoined platform with Workspace ONE Intelligence provides, that really helps fill a missing gap for enterprises.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, I don't see any other questions. And so I would just like to thank everybody for joining us for the webinar. And I would specifically like to thank Steve, John, and Kern for great content. So with that, I would just like to give everybody, wish everybody a great day. And thank you again for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.